able to share with you today some information that was shared with me a few years ago. You see, I used to work at a mall. I was a retail manager, and I'd done all the things my parents told me to do. I went to school, got the good grades, and got out to get the good job. The problem was it took me about 7.5 years to get my 4-year degree. And I don't know if you've attended college before, but, you can have more than enough credits to graduate, but just not all in the right thing. And never forget, I went to my advisor, and she says, listen, what are you going to do? And I said, what do I need to do to graduate? She looked at all my credits and says, you've got enough credits for 3 people to graduate with you, but if you take a degree or major in PR, public relations, you can graduate right now. I said, like today? She said, yeah. I said, great, that'll be my degree. And so that's how I got out. I went out and played the resume game. And I don't know if you've ever felt stuck at a job before, but my experience working at this mall outweighed my degree. And so I felt stuck at this job. And I continued to work just hard enough so they couldn't fire me, and they paid me just enough so I couldn't quit. And along came PrePaid Legal Services. Now, mind you, I tried a lot of different entrepreneur ventures before. I just had no financial things to speak of. And then I read a book on wealth, and it said the average millionaire in this country gained that wealth after the 7th or 8th different venture. I said, wow, I got about 4 more things I can try then. And so I gave PrePaid Legal a shot. We started at the age of 28 and actually made our first million by the age of 31. So it's been a true blessing for us. And so today I want to share with you 5 different areas you want to evaluate when you take a look at any opportunity. The first being the company. We want to make sure the company's credible, is authentic, is not in business today and gone out of business tomorrow. The second, the need in the marketplace. You want to make sure there's a real need for what you're offering. You see, in America, if you can find a void and fill it, you can become very successful. We're going to talk about the 2 voids that we're filling today, one being the justice system, because the real color of justice is not black or white, but green. And the second being an identity theft shield to protect us from the #1 fastest growing crime in America today. Then we're going to talk about the product, because of course you want a product you can't just go anywhere else and get. You want to make sure that if you want the best for the least amount, you've got to come to us, our company, PrePaid Legal Services. And then we're going to talk about compensation. Now, I grew up in a very traditional family, and my parents didn't like to talk about money. They said things like money's not everything, but it is when you don't have any. They said things like money can't buy you happiness. Look at the smile on my face. I'm telling you, that's not the truth. You see, broke people made that up to help you feel comfortable. But seriously, it's not the money. It's the things you can do with it. When you wake up in the morning, not to see how you're going to pay your bills, but to see who you can bless because all your bills have been paid. That's a different feeling in the morning. And then we're going to talk about timing, because timing's more important than talent. And we're going to prove that to you today. So first, let's talk a little bit about our company, PrePaid Legal Services Incorporated. Folks, we're over 30 years old, a New York Stock Exchange company, traded under the symbol PPD. I remember that for Please Pay Darnell. But seriously, folks, after being traded there, after 5 short months, we became one of the fastest growing companies on the entire New York Stock Exchange. Our company actually has over a decade of consecutive growth in both memberships and revenues. Folks, we're doing well. You can kick the tires of our company because we're regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Everything you need to find out is an open book, a glass house. We also want to talk about a little bit about third-party validation, because I'm going to say some great things about PrePaid Legal. Anybody representing a particular company will say great things about that company. But I once heard it said that documentation beats conversation. In other words, you can talk all day long, but show me the facts. And there are companies like Forbes magazine. They rank the richest people in America every single year and the best performing companies every single year. And in one of their articles, they stated one of the best 200 small companies in America was PrePaid Legal Services for 5 years in a row. Fortune magazine ranked us one of the fastest growing companies in America. Money magazine ranked our stock out of an entire decade above companies like Microsoft and HBO and WorldCom. Again, incredible third-party validation. The list goes on and on with all the third-party validation that talks about our company. Let's talk a little bit about the need in the marketplace. You know, the American Bar Association says that 52% of Americans have a legal situation right now. That means half of us. So if you're watching this presentation with someone, if you take a quick glance at them, they have a legal situation right now. And if they don't, you do, because half of us do. Now, I never thought I needed a prepaid legal plan. But the gentleman said, Darnell, it's not whether you've used an attorney, whether you've needed to use an attorney. He said, you take your shirt to the cleaners and the cleaners messes up the buttons on your shirt. You're not going to go get an attorney, because to get an attorney costs more than the buttons on the shirt. Or you take your car to the mechanic and there's one problem wrong, but you go to pick it up and mysteriously there's 2 other problems wrong. Like it's smoking now, but wasn't wasn't smoking when you first took it. And so again, there are legal situations that we typically don't deem as legal situations because we check our checkbook before we check our rights. And now we have an opportunity, folks, to truly level the legal playing field. As a matter of fact, statistics show that you're more likely to end up in court than the hospital. But most of us have some type of hospitalization or see the need in having it, but most of us don't have any type of legal benefits. But it takes vision to see this first. You know, I did an interview with Helen Keller, and she says, yes, I'm physically blind, but I'd rather be physically blind and have no sight than to have sight with no vision. So it takes vision to see it before the masses see it. Let's talk a little bit about the product. You see, a prepaid legal plan does for your attorney your legal bills, which your health insurance would do for your hospital and doctor bills. Who's covered by the membership? Of course, the member's spouse, any never married dependent children under the age of 21 living at home. Also, any children up to the age of 23 that are full-time in college, never married independent. And then any children that you're the legal guardian of up to the age of 18. Finally, any physically and mentally challenged children, regardless of age, living at home, all under this one membership. Then there's 5 different areas of coverage. Each are separate and different. I'm going to run through them real briefly for you. The first area is preventive legal services. That means things don't have to be bad in order to use the service. You know, typically things we prepay for, we really don't want to extract the value out of. For an example, I've been prepaying for my auto insurance since I was a teenager. But in order for me to get back the value I've been prepaying for them, I have to get in a car accident. I've been prepaying for my homeowner's insurance since I've been a homeowner for a while. But in order for me to get back what I've been prepaying annually to them, my house has to burn down or someone has to burglarize me, you know, all positive things. I've been prepaying for my life insurance for a while, but not looking forward to the value. The first section under the preventive legal services is phone consultation for an unlimited number of matters. Now, prior to prepaid legal, I would never pick up the phone and call an attorney just to ask questions because at $200 an hour, that's an expensive conversation. But with prepaid legal, because we're able to pick up the phone and ask questions and find out what our rights are, we use them all the time. You see, folks, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And never forget, we bought a brand new vehicle and we made a U-turn and the steering wheel stuck in mid-U-turn. Now, we had roadside assistance. They came and towed the truck back to the dealership, but the dealership didn't do what I thought they ought to do. And so typically I would argue back and forth and say, who's the sales manager or who's the general manager? And you know how that goes. And typically you say, you're going to hear from my attorney. And that person, you both know you don't have an attorney. But with prepaid legal, I was able to pick up the phone and get some advice. They said, where'd you buy the truck? I told them what state. They said, because every state has a different limit law. They said, what's the make and model? I told them, because they said every make and model in a particular state has a different limit law. They said, what's the issue? I said, well, it's a steering issue. They said, because every issue in a particular state with a particular make and model has a different limit law. Now, I would have known that. Remember, it took me 7.5 years to get my bachelor's degree. But the bottom line is they were able to advise me. And they said, Mr. Self, if they keep your truck for 3 days on that same issue, they've got to give you a brand new truck that day. Now, I would have never known that if it wasn't for prepaid legal, and the average person would sweep something like that under the rug every single day. Because of prepaid legal, my rights were enforced. They'll also write letters and make phone calls on your behalf if they see that will rectify the situation. I've had attorneys write several letters for me. As a matter of fact, I bought one with me today. And I don't know if you've ever called a company and they don't want to help you out. And you say, well, who's your supervisor? And they don't want to help you out. And you say, who's your supervisor? You go through this game, or they leave you on hold for 3 hours listening to Lionel Richie or something. And so we had an opportunity to actually have the attorneys write a letter for us because this company had been threatening us over $92.20. Now, $92 may not be a lot of money to you, but it was my $92 and I didn't want to pay it out. Now, they said that we ordered a product that we never ordered from one of their telemarketers and that we had to pay this $92 or they sent our name to a collection agency. And maybe you're like me. I don't want $92 messing up my credit. So we had prepaid legal write a letter for me. Here's what the letter says. Dear sir or madam, please be advised that this office has been requested by Miss Tracy Self, my wife, to contact you regarding the above captioned matter. This letter is to serve formal notice upon you that my client denies and disputes that she owes any debt or liability to you on this account and further demands strict proof of the same. I've been further advised that my client never received any product from your company, nor did she ever order any product or service from your company. Please provide written verification that you received this letter and are canceling this invoice. Lastly, you are further instructed to cease and desist from any further communication with my client pursuant to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Doesn't that sound good? I know it does, but I would have known to say that, but the attorneys did. And of course, we never heard from that company again, but it was the power of an attorney writing a letter on our behalf. Also, contract and document review, up to 10 pages. You know, how many times we sign things and later on wish we wouldn't have signed them? They say the bold print giveth, but the fine print taketh away. And the wealthy always say, I don't sign anything without my attorney taking a look at it first. Now we have that same privilege. Last will and testament. You know, 7 out of 10 Americans don't have a last will and testament. The sad part is that, of course, 10 out of 10